Zultepec, Mexico, archaeologists make a grisly find. 400 skeletons buried in a mass grave. They've lain undisturbed for over 500 years. Their remains suggest they met a brutal and horrific end.
No pity.
So far, they have found almost 400 bodies, but they're continuing to unearth more and more every day. Each one contains important clues as to how they died. All the bodies have been mutilated and decapitated, and certain bones have been deliberately removed. All the bodies display evidence of being subjected to a ritual killing. Magali Thivera is a forensic anthropologist. In the beginning, she assumed that the bodies belonged to enemy tribes of the Aztecs.
It has a very long head with a very narrow forehead, and we have also the short orbits, very quadrangular shape, and also you can see these cheekbones, which are in a way very light. Also, it's important the shape of the palate and the size of the teeth. That tells us that this is European.
Europeans, and not just native Indians, were amongst those killed at Zultepec. It's a crucial piece of evidence. They've uncovered artifacts that could only have come from Europe.
These iron objects are indicative of what was around in Europe at the time. More precisely, they are Spanish in design and construction.
They invested what they could. So if they were well off and they could provide ships, horses, cannons and so on, then they did that, even cash investments. If they're poor, then they bring themselves. That's their investment. It's a personal investment in their willingness to fight and sacrifice themselves in order to carve out a new province or colony for the empire.
Caravan began to swell as they made allies en route of local peoples who hated the ruling Aztecs. These disaffected nations gladly took up arms against their oppressors. Edgar Gayton is the forensic artist doing the highly skilled reconstruction work.
This cranium belonged to a male, but that in fact, this cranium belonged to a European female.
Their analysis reveals that at least 10 of the skulls belong to European females. Hernan Cortés, the leader of the Spanish conquistadors in Mexico, had abandoned a large caravan of Spaniards and locals on their way back to the Aztec capital. These weak and wounded men and women were at their most vulnerable at night. They would have been easy prey for the increasingly militant Aztecs. With an intimate knowledge of the area, the element of surprise and a prowess for ambushing in the dark, the Aztecs would have had all the advantages. The Aztecs would have wanted to capture their enemies alive. Their fate would be sealed later. The captives may have been kept prisoner for months. Their conditions would have been wretched, with little light and food. The conquistadors and their entourage could only sit and wait. Four priests held down the victim, restraining him by the limbs, while the fifth priest said the final incantation.
They open their chests while they are still alive, and take out their hearts and entrails, and burn them before the idols, offering them up as sacrifice.
Enrique has even discovered a knife that could have been used to enact these human sacrifices.
Un zompantli. Zompantli significa bandera de
The
calaveras.
zompantli is the Aztec word for a skull. Each head was punctured on both the left and right-hand side of the skull in preparation for display. Over 24 skulls were found here, all with the distinctive holes in the head. At least half of them were European. This tiny, simple illustration reveals two significant clues. Firstly, horse heads. We know that the Aztecs didn't have horses, so they could belong only to the conquistadors. But the most significant clue is in the depiction of the human heads on the skull rack. These heads are clearly bearded. The Aztecs' local enemies had little facial hair, but the Spanish wore beards. But there's another revelation buried deep in this storeroom, suggesting the Aztecs didn't stop at human sacrifice.
Once the captives had been sacrificed, their bodies were dismembered, and then the bones ritually prepared. These leg bones indicate that firstly, the flesh was stripped off, using sharp obsidian blades before being specially treated. They were put in pots full of lime, like this.
Some of the bones appear to have been cooked at a very high temperature.
I believe these bones have been chewed and eaten. They display all the hallmarks of having been cooked up and consumed by the Aztecs.
We can see some of the marks. These marks actually are of human beings when the person chewed the bone and it was taken out and eaten.
There are codices that illustrate the Aztecs cooking up and eating their enemies.
In my opinion, it is certainly a good time to reconsider this important chapter in the history of the conquest of Mexico.